Saturday Night Live is known for comedy, chaos, and unforgettable characters, but not every laugh came easy. Behind the scenes, some cast members weren't just clashing in sketches. They were clashing for real. From subtle tension to full-blown drama, these are the stories you were never meant to hear. Join us as we uncover the real-life conflicts between SNL cast members who actually hated each other. Janine Garofalo and Adam Sandler. Janine Garofalo joined Saturday Night Live in 1994, but her time on the show was short-lived and full of tension. From the very beginning, things were rocky. Garofalo had already made public comments criticizing SNL, saying the show had become unwatchable. She also singled out Adam Sandler's comedy, calling it childish. These remarks didn't sit well with the cast, especially Sandler, who was one of the show's most popular performers at the time. When she arrived, it was clear that many cast members weren't happy to have her there. According to Garofalo, her experience on SNL felt like being hazed in a fraternity. She later said in interviews that the environment was difficult, and she didn't feel welcome or respected. She struggled to fit in with the rest of the team, and her early criticisms only made things worse. Adam Sandler, who normally had a laid-back and friendly reputation, took her comments personally. At first, he didn't say anything to her at all. He completely ignored her. Garofalo later explained that for a long time, Sandler wouldn't speak to her, not even to say hello. Eventually, he did break his silence, but not in a kind or gentle way. When he finally did speak to her, it was only to tell her off and express how upset he was about what she had said about him and his comedy. But the conflict wasn't limited to just her and Sandler. Garofalo also ran into trouble with the show's production team. Saturday Night Live has always relied heavily on cue cards, and most cast members read their lines live during the show. Garofalo, however, preferred to memorize her lines. This approach led to problems. During one rehearsal, she hesitated while trying to remember a line, and it set off longtime writer and producer Al Franken. According to people who witnessed it, Franken lost his temper and yelled, "Read the cue cards." The moment was a turning point. Garofalo realized that she was never going to be able to change how the show worked, and it made her even more uncomfortable in the environment. Despite all the stress, Garofalo later said the experience taught her valuable lessons. It helped her understand the fast-paced, high-pressure world of live television. Still, the overall experience left her drained and unhappy. She decided to leave the show just a few months before the end of the season. Looking back, she said that while she grew from it, she didn't regret walking away when she did. Will Ferrell and Chris Katan. Will Ferrell and Chris Katan were once one of Saturday Night Live's most popular duos. Their recurring sketch, The Roxbury Guys, became a major hit in the late 1990s. It featured the two as head-bobbing clubbers who danced their way through awkward encounters. Their chemistry was strong on screen, and their dynamic led to the 1998 movie A Night at the Roxbury. But while the sketch made fans laugh, things behind the scenes were far less friendly. Tension started to grow during the making of A Night at the Roxbury. According to Chris Katan's 2019 memoir, Baby Don't Hurt Me, the real turning point in his relationship with Ferrell came during this period. Katan revealed that he had a romantic relationship with Amy Heckerling, who was originally attached as a producer for the film. Heckerling was a well-known director, famous for Clueless. In the book, Katan said that Lorne Michaels, creator and executive producer of SNL, pressured him to start a relationship with Heckerling to make sure she stayed on board for the project. Will Ferrell reportedly saw the situation as a betrayal. Katan claimed that Ferrell felt he had sold out or acted unprofessionally by mixing a personal relationship with the film's production. After that, Ferrell began to distance himself. Katan said Ferrell stopped answering his calls and essentially cut ties with him both professionally and personally. It was especially painful for Katan, since they had shared such a strong connection on SNL and during their early careers. The drama didn't end with Katan's memoir. After the book's release, Amy Heckerling publicly responded to his claims. She firmly denied Katan's version of events, saying that she never had any kind of romantic relationship with him and that his story was false. She called him a liar and suggested that he was using her name to create drama and promote his book. Her comments caused further damage to Katan's reputation and cast doubt on his side of the story. Victoria Jackson and everyone else. Victoria Jackson was one of the most recognizable cast members on Saturday Night Live during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Known for her high-pitched voice and quirky characters, she stood out on screen, but behind the scenes, she often felt like an outsider. Over the years, many of her former co-stars have confirmed that the tension was real. Norah Dunn once said of Jackson, "We weren't even in the same book, much less on the same page." That quote summed up how separate Jackson seemed from the rest of the cast. While others bonded over writing, performing, or simply hanging out, Jackson often kept to herself or made others uncomfortable with her views. Jackson has claimed that some of the women on the show, including Norah Dunn and Jan Hooks, were jealous of her because she was getting small movie roles while still on SNL. But those who worked with her say the friction had little to do with jealousy and more to do with her behavior and beliefs. Religion was a major dividing point. Jackson is an outspoken Christian, and during her time at SNL, she would often hand out Bibles to her castmates. She also tried to talk to them about their souls and salvation. While she felt she was doing something kind, others saw it as pushy or uncomfortable. It created distance between her and much of the cast. One of the most notable incidents happened with Al Franken. Jackson returned some comedy audiobooks to him that she found offensive, and soon after that, he completely stopped speaking to her. She said he never acknowledged her again after that moment. Jackson didn't seem surprised. In her view, she believed she was trying to save her co-workers from hell, and if that made them upset, she felt it was still worth it. Even years later, Jackson remained at odds with many former cast members. Her political and religious beliefs became even more public, further separating her from much of the SNL community. While she still defends her time on the show, it's clear she didn't connect with most of the cast in the way others did. John Belushi and Chevy Chase. Before Saturday Night Live even began, John Belushi and Chevy Chase already knew each other. They had both worked together in the early 1970s on Lemmings, a stage show by National Lampoon. It was a comedy spoof of the Woodstock Music Festival. Even back then, their relationship wasn't exactly warm. They weren't close friends, and when they joined the first cast of SNL in 1975, things didn't improve. They got worse. When SNL started, Chevy Chase quickly became the star. His Weekend Update segment was a hit, and he was getting the most laughs and attention. Belushi, on the other hand, was struggling to get noticed. He was frustrated that Chase was getting all the best lines and the biggest roles in the sketches. Belushi wanted to shine too, but he felt pushed to the side. Chevy didn't make things any easier. According to people who worked on the show, Chase would often make rude jokes about Belushi. He once joked that he had to teach Belushi how to eat properly with a fork, and even said he helped him by shaving his hairy back. These kinds of comments weren't just offhand remarks. They added fuel to the fire. Belushi already felt like he was being overlooked, and Chase's arrogance made it worse. Belushi's frustration kept growing. He didn't just feel ignored, he felt insulted. In interviews, he later said that he wasn't being given material he could really work with. "I go where I'm kicked," he said. "They throw me bones dogs wouldn't chew on." That kind of feeling can make any workplace difficult, especially a fast-moving one like SNL, where egos and pressure run high. When Chevy Chase left the show halfway through the second season, many people thought the show might lose its audience. Chase had become a household name, and NBC was nervous, but Belushi was glad to see him go. With Chase gone, Belushi finally had the chance to stand out and take on stronger roles. He would go on to become one of the most beloved SNL stars of all time until his tragic death in 1982. Stick around, because the next feud ended in a real backstage fistfight right before the show went live. Chevy Chase and Bill Murray. When Chevy Chase left Saturday Night Live during its second season, it was a big deal. He had become the show's first breakout star, and many people thought SNL might not survive without him. But not long after Chase left, Bill Murray was brought in to fill the gap. Murray brought a different style of comedy, and even though it took him a little time to win over the audience, he eventually became a fan favorite. Still, behind the scenes, things weren't so smooth, especially between Murray and Chase. The trouble really started when Chevy Chase came back to host SNL in 1978. By then, he was a full-blown movie star and had a reputation for being arrogant. He acted like he was above the cast, even though he had only been gone for a short time. Bill Murray already didn't like Chase very much, and now that he had replaced him on the show, the tension between them grew quickly. Murray wasn't shy about his feelings. He didn't like the way Chevy acted, or the way he treated people. According to many people who were there at the time, Chase's behavior was rude and self-centered. He bragged about his success and made it seem like he had outgrown the show and the people still on it. For someone like Bill Murray, who took pride in the work being done on SNL, that attitude was hard to swallow. Things came to a boiling point on the night of the live show. Just minutes before they were supposed to go on air, Chevy Chase and Bill Murray got into a heated argument in John Belushi's dressing room. The fight started with words but quickly turned physical. Insults flew between them. Murray made fun of Chase's struggling marriage, and Chase fired back by mocking Murray's face, saying that astronaut Neil Armstrong had landed on it. These personal attacks made the situation worse, and the two men started throwing punches. It got so out of hand that Belushi and Bill's brother, Brian Doyle Murray, had to step in to pull them apart. The fight caused chaos behind the scenes. People were worried that the show would fall apart just before it aired. But somehow, both men pulled themselves together and went through with the live episode as planned. You wouldn't have known it from watching the broadcast, but there had just been a serious fight backstage. Years later, both men would talk about the incident in interviews. Chevy Chase said that John Belushi had been trying to turn Bill Murray against him, and that this played a big role in their fight. Chase told Howard Stern that Lorne Michaels, the show's creator, had told him that Belushi had been jealous of Chase's quick rise to fame. Chase believed this jealousy helped fuel the tension. Bill Murray, on the other hand, downplayed the whole thing. In a 2012 interview, he called it a Hollywood fight and said it was more about ego than anything serious. He said it was the kind of fight where people shout, "Don't touch my face!" Something dramatic, but not long-lasting. According to Murray, the two of them made peace not long afterward, and any hard feelings faded over time. Next up, the tension goes beyond insults. John Belushi just didn't think women were funny. Jane Curtin and John Belushi. Jane Curtin and John Belushi were both part of the original Saturday Night Live cast, starting in 1975. While they worked together for years, their relationship behind the scenes was far from friendly. One of the main reasons for this was John Belushi's strong and very open belief that women just weren't funny. According to Jane Curtin, Belushi didn't like being in sketches that involved women. In interviews years later, she spoke openly about how hard it was to work with him. She said that Belushi would flat out refuse to perform in sketches that were written by women or had female leads. If he did agree to take part, he wouldn't put in much effort, which made the sketch fall flat. That kind of behavior didn't just hurt the writers, it hurt the whole cast. Curtin described how this played out during table reads. When the cast would gather to read through new sketches, Belalushi would deliberately underperform if the sketch came from a female writer. He'd read his lines with no energy or mumble through them, making the sketch seem weak, even if it had strong material. This caused many of those sketches to be cut from the show before they even had a chance. In an interview with Oprah, Katan said they were working against John, who said women are just fundamentally not funny. On Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, she added, "There were a few people that just out and out believed that women should not have been there." These statements show just how deep the sexism ran at the time, and how difficult it was for women trying to succeed in comedy, even on a groundbreaking show like SNL. Belushi's widow, Judy Belalushi Pisano, later defended him in interviews. She claimed that John wasn't truly sexist and that people misunderstood him. According to her, his views came from the way he was raised and not from genuine disrespect for women. She said he could actually be very supportive in private, even calling him a woman's liber before she was. Despite those defenses, Katan's experience tells a different story, one where working with Belalushi meant constantly pushing back against a co-star who didn't believe you belonged: Charles Rocket, Joe Piscopo, and Eddie Murphy. In 1980, Saturday Night Live faced a major shift. The original cast, known as the Not Ready for Primetime Players, had left the show, and a brand new group of performers came in. Along with them came a new producer, Jean Dumanian. This era is now seen as one of the lowest points in SNL history. The new season was poorly received by critics and viewers, and behind the scenes, things weren't much better. One of the new cast members was Charles Rocket. Tall, good-looking, and confident, Rocket was seen as the man who would replace Chevy Chase as the show's next breakout star. NBC promoted him heavily, and he was quickly given a central role on the show, including anchoring Weekend Update. But according to fellow cast members, Rocket's confidence quickly turned into arrogance. He assumed he would be the show's main focus and future star. However, two other cast members, Joe Piscopo and a young Eddie Murphy, soon started to win over audiences. Their sketches stood out for being sharper and funnier, and viewers began to notice. Instead of being supportive, Rocket grew resentful. He didn't like the fact that Piscopo and Murphy were getting more laughs, more praise, and more screen time. Tensions reached a breaking point when Rocket confronted Piscopo after a Weekend Update segment. Rocket was angry that Piscopo's jokes had landed better than his. He shouted, "You're not part of this cast at all!" Piscopo fired back, calling Rocket one-dimensional. Rocket lost it. In front of several others, he screamed, "I'll rip your throat out!" Not long after that, Rocket made a major mistake during a live episode. At the end of the show, in a sketch that was supposed to be playful, he dropped the F-word live on air. The moment shocked both the audience and NBC. It was a serious violation of broadcast standards, and it sealed Rocket's fate. He was fired from the show soon after. Meanwhile, Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo continued to rise and became the faces of SNL for the next few years. Next up, we'll look at a quieter but just as bitter feud between Norm Macdonald and Chris Katan. Norm Macdonald and Chris Katan. Norm Macdonald was known for his dry humor, sharp wit, and brutal honesty. During his time on Saturday Night Live, he didn't hide how he felt about his castmates, especially Chris Katan. In a 1997 Rolling Stone interview, Norm said clearly, "I don't find him funny. What can I say? Never made me laugh." It was a simple comment, but it set the tone for what would become one of the show's more awkward, behind-the-scenes relationships. According to people who worked on SNL during that time, the tension between Norm and Katan wasn't just for show, it was real, and it often played out in front of other cast members. A source told the New York Observer that Norm would openly criticize Katan, sometimes right to his face. Norm didn't care who was around. If he didn't like someone, he let them know. One of the strangest and most talked about moments from their feud was the infamous shoe incident. Will Ferrell, who was also in the cast at the time, shared the story years later on the Fly on the Wall podcast. According to Ferrell, Norm and Katan were on a flight together. During the flight, Katan took off his shoes and went to sleep. When he woke up, his shoes were gone. Katan immediately blamed Norm, who denied everything. The situation became a weird ongoing joke or argument throughout the season. Then, months later, Norm finally came clean. As Ferrell remembered it, Norm casually admitted, "Oh yeah, one other thing. I did take your shoes. I threw them in the trash can." It wasn't just a prank. It showed how far Norm would go to mess with someone he didn't like. In 2015, long after both men had left the show, Chris Katan tweeted that their feud had been exaggerated. He said it was only for comedic purposes and that he and Norm were never really enemies. But based on the many stories from that time, it's hard to tell if Katan was being serious or just trying to move on from an awkward past. Next up, we've got Tracy Morgan and his not-so-warm welcome from a few SNL veterans. Things are about to get even more heated. Tracy Morgan, Cherry O'Terry, and Chris Katan. When Tracy Morgan joined Saturday Night Live in 1996, he didn't feel welcomed by everyone. In particular, he had negative experiences with cast members Cherry O'Terry and Chris Katan. According to Morgan, both of them were cold and dismissive toward him from the start. He said they didn't treat him like an equal and seemed unwilling to accept him as part of the cast. This early tension would grow into full-blown resentment over the years. Morgan didn't hold back when he wrote about the experience in his 2009 memoir, I Am the New Black. In the book, he said that O'Terry and Katan were disrespectful and acted like they were more important than others. He didn't believe they deserved the attitudes they carried. He made it clear that he didn't think much of their talent either. Referring to O'Terry specifically, Morgan said, "That be, can't even get arrested," suggesting her career had stalled after SNL. But he didn't stop there. In the audiobook version of his memoir, Morgan went even further. Instead of just reading the book word for word, he added more commentary during the recording. He used the opportunity to insult O'Terry and Katan again, calling them names and questioning their relevance. These off-script rants showed just how deep his frustration ran. It wasn't just professional, it was personal. However, Morgan didn't feel the same way about all of his former castmates. He spoke very kindly about others on the show, including Will Ferrell, Colin Quinn, and Molly Shannon. He said they treated him with respect and kindness, and he always appreciated that. He credited them with helping him learn and grow during his time at SNL. That contrast made his negative comments about O'Terry and Katan stand out even more. Neither O'Terry nor Katan ever responded publicly to Morgan's remarks, but the way Morgan tells it, the divide between them was clear from day one. While SNL was a career-changing opportunity for him, it also came with difficult relationships that still stuck with him years later. Up next, we'll dive into one of SNL's most bizarre behind-the-scenes feuds, featuring Dennis Miller and a former president's daughter. Tracy Morgan and Jimmy Fallon. Tracy Morgan and Jimmy Fallon were both cast members on Saturday Night Live during the late 1990s and early 2000s. While they came from different comedy backgrounds, they shared the stage for several seasons. On the surface, things seemed friendly, but behind the scenes, there was real tension, especially from Morgan's side. One of the biggest issues Tracy Morgan had with Fallon was his habit of breaking character during live sketches. Fallon became known for frequently laughing during scenes, even when the moment wasn't meant to be funny. While some fans found it charming, others, including Morgan, thought it was distracting and unprofessional. To Morgan, Fallon's constant laughter pulled attention away from the sketch and his fellow performers. It broke the rhythm and made it harder for the cast to keep the scene going. In a Penthouse interview years later, Morgan made his opinion clear. He said Fallon was the worst at breaking character and believed it was a way for Fallon to steal focus during sketches. Morgan didn't think it was funny. He thought it was selfish. According to Morgan, SNL was about teamwork, and Fallon's laughing fits took away from everyone else's hard work. At one point, Morgan decided to confront Fallon directly. He pulled him aside privately and told him to stop breaking character, especially when they were in sketches together. Morgan told him, "Don't do that when I'm in a sketch with you." After that, Fallon made an effort not to break in scenes with Morgan. Though the warning was firm, it seemed to work. Fallon respected the request, and their sketches together became more focused. Even after they moved on from SNL, Morgan didn't let go of the issue entirely. On 30 Rock, the comedy series he starred in, several episodes took jabs at Fallon. His character, Tracy Jordan, would often complain about actors who couldn't stay in character, or would sarcastically mention someone breaking all the time. Clear nods to Fallon. Though not named directly, the jokes were widely seen as playful but pointed references to their time on SNL. Still, time helped ease the tension. Eventually, Morgan and Fallon put the past behind them. Morgan appeared as a guest multiple times on The Tonight Show, starring Jimmy Fallon. They laughed together, shared stories, and seemed to genuinely enjoy each other's company. By then, whatever friction had once existed seemed to have faded, replaced by mutual respect. Next, we'll look at a fight so intense it ended in permanent silence between two SNL icons. Stick around. Jon Loveitz and Norah Dunn. Jon Loveitz and Norah Dunn were both standout cast members on Saturday Night Live in the late 1980s. But behind the scenes, they didn't get along. Their problems came from very different work styles and personalities, and over time, it created real tension. Norah Dunn came from a theater background and took a more serious, rehearsed approach to comedy. She believed in preparation and timing. Jon Loveitz, on the other hand, was known for his wild energy and unpredictable delivery. He thrived on chaos and spontaneity. These two styles didn't mix well. Dunn later said that Loveitz would sometimes mess up rehearsals or undercut the timing of scenes, which made it hard for her to do her job. She accused him of not taking rehearsals seriously and even claimed he did it on purpose. Their working relationship got worse in 1990, during one of the show's biggest controversies, the Andrew Dice Clay episode. Clay was a popular but very divisive comedian, known for his offensive jokes about women and minorities. When it was announced that he would host SNL, Norah Dunn refused to appear on the episode. She said she didn't want to be part of something that gave him a bigger platform. Musical guest Sinead O'Connor also dropped out in protest. Loveitz strongly disagreed with Dunn's decision. He said it wasn't about morals, it was about attention. In interviews, he called it a publicity stunt and said she made it about herself instead of the show. He felt that if she had such strong opinions, she should have taken a stand privately or quit altogether rather than using it as a media moment. When Dunn returned the following week, the mood backstage was cold. According to reports, several cast members didn't speak to her. The tension stayed, and not long after, both she and Loveitz left the show, each with very different legacies. Dunn became known as someone who stood up for her beliefs, while Loveitz remained a fan favorite for his over-the-top characters. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the wild stories behind your favorite shows.